Are we working this time? Okay, we're working this time. We weren't working last time. Hello everybody. I am here today to tell you about a weird dream that I just had. And when I say just had, I actually just had it like less than half an hour ago, I guess. To give you a little bit of context, though, before I get into the story of the dream, I was working today, and part of my job is pushing carts in the out in the parking lot. And so instead of doing it for part of the day like I usually do, I was out there the entire day, with the exception of like coming in to get water, take a break or whatever. But pretty much I was outside continuously for 6 hours, starting at noon, right in the middle of the day. Now, I was smart, and I used sunblock, so I didn't get burned. I mean, I'm obviously not burned or anything, but I still think the sun fucked with my head. And also at the same time, I had this knockoff generic Mountain Dew from the store, which kind of tastes like Mellow Yellow, and it's kind of funny because I haven't smoked a cigar in like 3 days, so like my sense of taste starts to come back, and I realize it doesn't taste as good as I thought it did, but it also upset my stomach at the same time. So by the end of the day, I was feeling quite close to puking at work. This doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything, but you have to understand I just sort of woke up from my nap, so this is going to be a little disjointed. You're just going to have to live with it, I guess. I don't know, or not. But anyway, all that happened, and I came home from work, and I took a shower because I was disgusting, and then I laid down to take a nap. I laid down at 7:30 or so. Slept until 9:30, and my head, I was still like in a weird state. And I had this dream. The things that happened in the dream were not necessarily that odd on their own. I mean, they were, but they weren't unusually unusual, if that makes sense, in the sense of dreams. But just like the underlying feeling and underlying current of feelings was strange. So everybody get on your dream interpretation hats, because we're going to see what exactly this means. But this dream started out, I was at work doing what I was doing for the most of the day, but I think there was some jumping around in time going on, because there was also a thing where I was either watching, filming, or participating in a movie. Now, this movie was supposed to be some sort of romance of some sort, and in this romance, they needed a really contrived scene of like a car on fire, so like the guy could save the girl or some bullshit like that, or they could kiss in front of the blowing up car. It was something really dumb. But so they did this, and they had this blowing up car, but the way they did it was this most bizarre, strange way. Basically, it was a car that I think either had a sunroof open or something else cut in the top of it, and they put a big box of firecrackers in the middle of the car and lit them off. And so you had like hundreds of firecrackers like shooting every which way from the car, and making these screaming sounds, pew pew pew, everywhere, and there's like all these smoke trails going on, and like the firecrackers are narrowly avoiding like the film crew when they're like flying off into other directions, like towards houses and buildings and other cars and things. And like the romantic couple is like being filmed like backlit by the sort of the glow from this exploding car, and like it was. I don't know why it was meant to be romantic, because it was just kind of terrifying, really, because these things were like shooting off in every direction, and it didn't make any sense. And if that wasn't weird enough, that happened twice. Like, there was a scene a little bit later on in the movie when it needed another exploding car that exploded in the same way, and it was so weird. It was like so stupid that it even happened once in this kind of movie, but it happened twice. It was really contrived. I don't know who's writing this garbage, but like this all happened. And like I said, I was either participating, watching, helping to film it. I don't know. I don't remember. I was some way involved. So fast forward later, and I'm working, and like I feel exactly how I did when I was sick, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go home soon, and then like there was this random family there. By family, I mean mom, dad, and 2 kids, and they all wanted me to drive them home. I don't know why, but I had like 15 minutes left of work. I'm like, oh, I'll drive them home, whatever. I don't, they'll understand. I'm doing something good for a customer. Don't know why they're asking me to drive this entire family home, but or why they wanted me to drive them home, but like my car, all the windows on my car, like the glass was bowed inwards in this weird way. Like it was melted, but it was more like glass that was improperly blown at a glass blowing place. And the ones on the left were bowed inwards inside the car, but the ones on the right were bowed outwards, like out of the car. And it didn't make any sense, and I was speculating that it had something to do with the heat from all the firecrackers earlier from whatever car that was, and it didn't make any sense. So I wanted to call my dad and ask him, oh, what's this? So, I expected him to be like, oh, well, here, it's obvious, it's this, this is the reason why it happened. So, like, what ended up happening is this family decided to drive themselves home in my car, with me in the car to drive the car back, while I tried to call my dad. But for whatever reason, I had a very difficult time getting a hold of him. Like the phone, first of all, this phone was something between a cross between a handheld phone you use in your house, and the kind of cell phone that I had about 10 years ago, not really a brick, but brick-like. It didn't flip. It was just one solid thing, kind of like those Nokias you see on those images, but bigger. So I kept trying to call, and it was like, oh, which cell phone do you mean? Like he had 2 cell phone numbers or something. It was really weird. And one time and then I tried to dial the house number, but I got one number wrong, and I ended up with this woman trying to speak Spanish to me. And then I looked at the name, and it was like the name of this person that does like weird erotic art on the internet somewhere, and it didn't make any sense. Why was this happening? So it turned out they live like 20 minutes away from the Giant. Like I expected them to live like a minute or 2 away, but they lived like 20 minutes away. So I'm like, well, I'll be missing work for a while now driving them home, even though they're driving themselves home with my car. And so finally, when we got to their house, I got a hold of my dad, but they were playing music, and I was like, can you turn off the music, please? And they turned off the music, and I'm like, oh, this is what happened. And it was like he couldn't really understand what I was saying for some reason, even though the signal was clear. And then, like, the dream just kind of ended after that. I realized, oh, I could drive the car back. Oh, wait, no, I'm in my bed. All right. Oh, okay, that's convenient. But, like I said, it was weird, all that stuff, but it wasn't, like, unusually weird. But the weird thing about it was just, like, how I felt at the time. Like, it had the quality of a fever dream to it, in a way. and I had this weird kind of like emotion running through me. Like, I don't know if this is the case with any of you, but there are certain emotions that I used to feel before the age of, let's say, about 10, that I no longer felt after the age of 10, except in very, very rare instances, and always very mildly, and always there would be something triggering it that would be relating to something from that time, or it would be something from a dream. But I had this weird feeling that was like, I can only describe as the same kind of feeling that I used to get when I was 6 or 7 years old, when I would sort of contemplate the universe and contemplate my own, I guess, mortality in a way, my own limited lifespan. The fact that I, at one point, would die, even if it was, you know, even if it was 60 or 80 years in the future, it was still a certainty that it would happen. And I used to contemplate that when I was about 6, and it used to make me very upset at the time, and I would feel this weird sort of dread, but it wasn't like just a normal kind of dread. It was like this, to the core of your existence, existential dread. And it's a feeling that I can't get anymore under normal circumstances. Like, I can try to sit here and try to evoke it as hard as I can. I can think about anything that I think would evoke that, but it would never happen. I could never voluntarily evoke it. After the age of 10, that particular shade of that emotion was, I no longer felt that anymore. And I don't know why I was feeling that way during the dream, because it really didn't have anything to do with anything in the dream. Like, nothing in the dream was really that morbid or existential even, you know. I mean, the scariest thing in that dream was like firecrackers going everywhere for some reason. Like, no one actually got hurt by the firecrackers, but even if they did, like, that wouldn't be enough to trigger that sort of thing. It's just weird. And the other thing is, like, and sort of the emotion that it was blended with was, like, have you ever seen like a really trippy movie? I'm going to use an example, like Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, where there's just sort of like this sort of weird, surreal, strange stuff going on, but like, pretend you're not old and numb. Pretend you're like still young and you're seeing it for the first time, and you're like, oh, you know, whoa, you know, like, not just saying whoa, but like actually feeling whoa, like one of those things where it makes you even question your own reality or your own stability or your own just sort of your own sense of reality. And I sort of had that feeling on top of this weird dread feeling. So I eventually woke up and I was lying there. Keep in mind, this wasn't like an overnight dream. This was a 2-hour nap dream. You know, not that the dream took 2 hours. You know, usually dreams like that can happen in a very short amount of time. But I was lying there in my bed, and just like for several minutes, especially, I did not have a. I felt that I did not have a good connection with reality. Like, I felt that I was sort of almost drifting back and forth between different eras and different places, because like there is sometimes some degree of continuity between dreams. Like, the roads that we were taking were some of those roads were in real life, and some of the roads were the same roads I had taken in other dreams, possibly going back a few years. You know, the whole riding with his family in a car evoked something that happened to me back when I was 19, and my car got stuck in rising floodwaters that I tried to drive through like a moron, and this family picked me up and brought me home, and the phone I was using at the time resembled the phone I had in the dream, so I had like this, like part of my mind was back at that age of 19, but then part of my mind was back at the age of 6 when I would sit there and contemplate these things, and at the same time my mind was at the current time where I was working at my job doing the thing, and it was just like this sort of like weird, not quite sure where I was in space or time kind of thing, and it was kind of weird when I eventually woke up, because like I usually don't feel feelings anymore really, other than like I feel 3 emotions on a typical basis anymore. Those emotions are basically this, like an anger, like a white hot anger, you know, that's one. Another one is a sort of sad despair kind of feeling, you know, just sort of this defeated despair. And the third emotion that I feel often is this kind of a joyous emotion, but it's more of a tee-hee-hee, giddy kind of joyous emotion. And I tend to feel one of those 3 and nothing else. Sometimes I can feel 2 of the 3 at once. In particular, I have felt the tee-hee-hee joy emotion and the white-hot anger emotion at the same time, which is actually a bit of a scary thing for anyone who observes that, because I kind of turn into a real bastard when I have both of those things going on. But like usually those are the only 3 emotions that I feel in any kind of quantity anymore, and other than that I am completely numb to everything. But when I was younger, there was like, you know, a whole color wheel of emotions that I used to feel from, I guess, and one of them was that kind of you know, weird existential dread kind of emotion, and for some reason that was present in heaping amounts in this dream, as was a sort of like whoa kind of like mental confusion kind of thing, which actually doesn't happen anymore to me either, although that emotion sort of lingered up until my at least late teens, maybe early 20s. But like it was kind of interesting because it made me think about how numb I've become, you know? Because most of the time I'm just really numb, you know? I can think about the sort of the grimmest things, I can think about the darkest possibilities, and I just don't feel anything, you know? Yet this weird dream that was possibly brought on by an upset stomach, too much caffeine, and too much sun made me feel these things. So, I don't know. This has been an incoherent rambling. I hope that you found this interesting and have some sort of analysis. I still don't feel quite normal. I have to eat, I think, and I have to do my laundry. Yeah. Anyway, well, that is my story. I hope you liked it or something. So, I'll see you guys again soon.